Hello and welcome to Profiles in Risk. This is your host, Tony Cañas, switching to my radio voice. And today I have with me Josh Riley, co-founder and managing director at Upfort. Josh, thank you for joining me today. How's it going?
It's going great, Tony. Thanks for having me. It's nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you. Thank you for coming on the show. Uh, Normally, just before recording, I open up your LinkedIn and then I open up your company website so that I can have those for reference. So I Googled upfront insurance like four times before my dyslexia gave in, and I realized it's Upfort.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's a problem.
so definitely curious, not only about what you guys do, but about the name. And we're recording middle of January, January 15, and it looks like you're in Charlotte. So given that Atlanta, where I live, had snow last Friday, I'm guessing you guys have seen a lot of winter, much more than usual the last couple of weeks.
We have had lower than average temperatures. No one here is very happy about it. So how did Atlanta handle a little snow?
The
It's
entire city shuts
historically
down.
not the best.
Correct. The last time they had snow was 2014, which is a year before I moved here, and that time kids got stuck in school for overnight and like it got really crazy. So now, whenever snow is in the forecast, the entire city shuts down. In this case, we did get a couple of inches, and yeah, the entire city shut down for about a day, and then it didn't melt for about 2 days, which is wild out
Yeah.
here. So yeah, it was weird, and I'm glad we're through it. We're still a little cold, but I'm glad we're past that. Uh,
Yeah, we had a similar experience. They canceled schools and things like that, just based on the forecast, which I understand because, if it goes bad, it goes very haywire here because we're not used to it. But yeah, no, it's relatively nice today. But I always get a little, most of my friends and family live up north, so I always like there to be a big temperature differential so I can
of
feel
course,
like superior, right? And but when it shrinks, really bums me out because I feel like, I'm not getting my money's worth. So.
I agree. I agree completely. So we always give the guest the chance to give the elevator pitch. What is Upfort?
Yeah. Upfort is a relatively new name for a company that we started 7 or 8 years ago. And as you pointed out, it's not a perfect name. It did have a clean bill of health as far as trademarks and domain names went, so it had that going for it. Um, but this is a company, it's a app-based cybersecurity software as a service company. The idea with it was a slightly different go-to-market, which is if we can integrate with the insurance industry, we think there's a lot of volume with tools that can be deployed at scale. Um, my background is in insurance, and I came from my last job before this was at Markel. I got pitched by a bunch of vendors. A lot of the tools didn't seem super well integrated or really terribly relevant to the actual drivers of claims that we had, even at the time back then when there weren't a ton of cyber claims. They just didn't seem super directed at what was actually happening. So we scratch built a bunch of cybersecurity software, the point of which was to hit at the actual drivers of cyber claims, especially for smaller businesses, to primarily do loss control for cyber insurance portfolios in that way. And then the idea always was we want to integrate these things in such a way that it enables a really, really healthy underwriting system and then ultimately a really, really healthy sales platform to sell cyber insurance, help that grow, help people access more cybersecurity, help people access more cyber insurance. And I think that's a journey we're well down the road on a little bit now, and so far with pretty good results.
All right, all right. Um, I'm a former middle market underwriter. Never really dealt with cyber much. Uh, Over the last few years, it does seem that all of a sudden, especially as the pandemic hit, cyber was everywhere, right? Then big losses all over the media. So we've definitely have businesses, even small businesses, realize that they need
Yeah.
coverage on this side, and at the same time, my understanding is mostly from people in the cyberspace that I've had on the show is that capacity for coverage kind of dried up, right? And underwriting guidelines got really tough. So
Yeah.
my understanding is that's kind of the world we're living in, right? Much tougher.
A little bit.
Okay.
A little bit. I mean, just like everything else in insurance, it goes in cycles. I think what happened with cyber was like a little bit of an abbreviated cycle. So as you pointed out, back when I was, actually underwriting cyber insurance and doing that, it felt like free money for a lot of the times, right? The innovation in cyber insurance is mostly like, what else can we add to this thing so that we can sell more of it? Then, as you pointed out, around the time of the pandemic, the thing kind of shifted. And some of that had to do with like virtual work. A lot of it had to do with the shifting economics of cyber attacks, which is to say, it got super, super cheap for people to launch cyber attacks against huge numbers of companies, right? It used to be that you sort of deploy your resources a little bit more smartly and go after the big companies or try to hack a hospital or a government or something. People certainly still do that. But then with phishing technologies and things like that, and ransomware platforms that you can access yourself, it's really easy to start up a ransomware business right now, and so you can do that cheaply. And so then it became easier and really pretty profitable to start hacking small businesses kind of by accident, just by sort of trawling and throwing out a net. When that happened, the ransomware claims went like through the roof. And then in response to that, there was a real hardening, which was good, right? We also got a lot of activity around that point because they said, boy, if we can stop some of these ransomware claims, and we said, well, that's what we're for, right? And so we started to add a lot more loss control services, a lot more loss control requirements of people applying for cyber insurance. Prices were going up, limits were going down. We came out of that pretty fast. The claims started to dip, and some people responded to that really quickly. The claims have already started to go up again. So as tends to happen now in all other lines of insurance, I don't think feel like anymore you don't see this huge thing of like tons of markets pulling out or anything. You just see everybody kind of making more granular adjustments. And there also always seems to be at least one or two people who are always in the top line game anyway, right? So if no matter what you're trying to do, there's already always somebody out there who's available to not underwrite and offer you a really low price. So there just always seems to be at least a couple of options. So that's kind of where we are right now. I think most people would describe it as like, there's a lot of options right now. But the weird thing is for a broker, I don't think that makes it easy to sell, right? Like it's like there's some easier processes, there's some good pricing, there's some really nice coverage, but it doesn't mean the whole thing has become easy to sell. So that's a problem we try to solve as well.
Okay. So looking at the website, you guys work with both carriers and agents.
Yeah.
So how do you service both sides? So let's start with for the carriers.
Yeah.
So for the carriers, why do they need an Upfort?
Well, I would start the best way what we try to do with everybody is create a little bit of a flywheel, right? So every component that I can offer to a carrier works well together, right? So what I always start with is the loss control. So if you say to me, I have 10,000 policyholders, they're all small businesses and none of them are doing anything for cybersecurity, I can say to you credibly, I can deploy cybersecurity across your entire portfolio for a reasonable cost, and they will all be able to use it, and it will absolutely make a difference in your loss ratio. We've been doing it for years. We've had claim counts drop 80+% in test cases. We can absolutely do that, right? What we love to do even more is sort of build that flywheel, right? When you do, just like any other line of insurance, when you do really effective loss control, what do you also do? You build a really relevant data set. Because if you're actually providing the loss control that stops these claims, what you're also doing is collecting really good structured data on the events that might have otherwise caused a claim or that might actually still cause a claim. And then, so that data differentiator is a big part of our platform for carriers. And then the big thing with data that I think a lot of people have come to recognize is you can have it, but if you don't know how to sort of parse through it, understand what it is, and then make it actionable, the value of it gets reduced pretty quickly. So the other thing we do is we have underwriting tools, full underwriting portal. We have other ingestion and application tools so that you can actually incorporate a differentiated data set into a more mature underwriting model and have it be a low friction, easy system for your underwriters and brokers. And then
Okay.
on the broker side, it's essentially just thinking about how you would connect a front end process to that, right? If I were a carrier and I have this really slick sort of like I'm doing all this loss control and I get all this data and it's incorporated really into like an automated environment where I can continuously underwrite. The problem with it is that I get these PDF applications and that's all dead information that sits in a file for me. And we say, well, if we can create a structured data for you, it helps not only you, it actually helps the brokers too. So we try to create situations where our services essentially create opportunities for brokers to have really low friction application processes for their clients. And if with that, what that happens with that is we can feed that directly into the carriers that we power and they also have these really low friction, easy systems. So that flywheel gets extended and everybody can sort of participate in this ecosystem of services enabling underwriting, enabling sales and back again. So that's what we try to do. We've really been the loss control thing is really mature for us. And now we've started to make a lot of progress in building out this overall ecosystem where people can sell more, underwrite better, and prevent claims with really high level services.
Okay. So about 7 years, the company's been around on the cybersecurity side. How long ago did the insurance focus really take off?
It was really right from the start. At the time, I think 7+ years ago, if you were going to start a cyber company and be involved in insurance, that meant you were going to start an MGU, right? And so, to be honest with you, I never totally understood that approach. I'm just not, I wasn't smart enough to understand why people did it that way. So what we really try to do instead is we always wanted to work with the insurance industry. We didn't always want to be like a managing general underwriter for cyber insurance. And really, mostly because our skill set was more in we're all kind of product nerds, right? So we were kind of like, no, we really want to build the thing that stops losses. And then we want to build the underwriting system that goes around it. And then we want to build the sales platform that connects to the underwrite. We wanted to do all that stuff. And we didn't want to spend a ton of time like building a book of business, right, ourselves. Because I'm not a distribution guy. Nobody on our team was a distribution guy. So we were always an insurance focused thing. But primarily devoted to loss control at that scale. So always thinking about software, but the go-to-market was always based on insurance because that's what I know. And we were always looking for a differentiated go-to-market that would provide these big aggregate opportunities of big groups of small, especially smaller companies that need a lot of help.
Okay. Um, what what is the implementation like? So do we already need to be on the Guidewire Cloud or Duck Creek to be able to implement, or the what is it? How hard is the implementation?
Yeah, no, I mean it's very easy. So we purposefully, just because having a little insight into how people choose things like policy management systems and how those projects tend to go, and we don't imagine ourselves ever being really the system of record for somebody running a cyber insurance program or a broker. Like we're not. So really, the way we built everything is modular and it's somewhat of a bolt-on, right? So if you may have an underwriting system or you may have a policy management system as a carrier, but you could use our underwriting portal as somewhat of a documentation engine, right? So the way I think about it is if when I was at a carrier, no vendor was ever going to come in at my level and say, I want to replace your policy management system. Like, well, you got to talk to 50 other people that are way outside of where I am, right? But if they said to me like, well, how do you underwrite a cyber policy? I would have said, well, I got an Excel spreadsheet and then I got to write five paragraph essay on a Word document or something, right? And like whatever arguably waste of time I was doing at the time to like fill out an underwriting file, we would say, great, take all that stuff that you do that's kind of like not the main policy management system, that's just sort of all these other little things that you have to piece together and put in the file, get rid of all that, just go into our portal instead. And not only will we replace all that, but we'll do most of it automatically for you, right? So when your underwriter sits down, you can have them write down a page of notes if you want to, but we can do it automatically for you with like, a fully generated notes. You can have them sort of note down, here's the endorsements but if you want to, we can just build automated rules that show them here are the endorsements that are required on this policy, right? So we're not trying to change the way you underwrite. It's just we're saying just ditch the Microsoft Word document, ditch the Microsoft Excel rater, and just come into our thing instead. You can still use your policy management system. If there's an opportunity for us to hook into it and make things even easier for you, great. That's fantastic. But if you can't do that, it doesn't really matter. So we'll just do it anyway, right? So we work with people where we can integrate with their systems. We work with people where literally we just trigger emails that go to a certain email address formatted a certain way so that their system knows to drop it into a certain file, whatever, right? It's just however we can do it so we change as few as your normal patterns as possible, but get you the results that we can actually deliver.
All right. All right. Um, what is the pricing like? And is it a 3-year commitment or like?
No, I mean it's different, depends on the scope with people, right? We do a lot of different everything. Everybody is different that we work with, really. The structure of it tends to be we have some kind of a platform or implementation fee, right? We cover our costs as far as like there's some engineering time that goes into everybody because we don't really pull it off the shelf for anybody, right? Because everybody's underwriting system is different. We try to incorporate your underwriting rules if you're a carrier, for instance, right? So if I talk to somebody who's a head of cyber somewhere, I'm not going to say to them like, "Hey, use our underwriting rules." What we're actually doing is saying we are going to execute your underwriting rules perfectly through this platform in an automated fashion. So we take a little bit of time doing that, and then we like to have something scalable, so there's a shared incentive, right? So we can work on making sure there's good bottom line profitability, but just in general, a lot of people are coming to us now and their first priority is I need to find a way to have a good, solid, sustainable, growing product. And we say, great. If we help you grow it, we'll all win, right? So some kind of base fee and then something that scales. And usually it doesn't, hopefully our goal too is not to add much friction to any transactions. So we do it in a way that fits neatly in the stack of things that you might normally pay for. So far so good.
All right. Uh, as we start 2025, uh, what is coming down the development pipeline for this year that you can already talk about that you're excited
Yeah,
about?
for us, I think like everybody else, we have a lot of new AI deployments within our platform, which is pretty cool. We're doing a lot of, like I mentioned, one of the things that we think is really interesting is to, take some of this data that's traditionally non-structured, like the dead PDFs that people send in, and that's going to create and make it into structured data. One way to do that is through digital applications that we help brokers with and stuff, but what if I already have a Beasley application? Can I drag and drop it somewhere? And we're getting a lot better at that, which is pretty cool, right?
That is
So
nice.
I think that's going to be, I think that's going to be a really good part of our platform. We are doing more and more when we leverage large language models. I think there's also a really good opportunity to train them on underwriting guidelines pretty quickly. So we've been experimenting with that, and we'll be deploying that on a couple of engagements here this year. And then one of the things that I'm really excited about is the way we built our software is really modular. So we have some really small parts of it. One of the things that we really want to do is help people to find really low hurdle ways to engage with cybersecurity. So on the business side, we're trying to do things where we give them especially with brokers, if we can give brokers the ability to give all of their clients, even the ones that don't buy cyber insurance, some lightweight cybersecurity tools and then use that as an engagement tool to cross-sell cyber. We can do that in a way that's revenue positive for the broker, but then also creates like really low or no touch cross-sell campaigns for a line of business that, like I said, it's tough. If you're a broker and you like have a 2 hour conversation with somebody about ransomware and then don't sell that, you know, policy for a really pretty small commission anyway, it's pretty tough to like devote that much time to it, right? And so everybody knows it's important, but what are the ways that we can sort of make that more efficient, like build tools for people so that they can actively sell it without spending too much time and the alarms go off in your head that this equation doesn't make sense. So we're doing that, and then where that's led us to is that there's the world, I think, of personal cyber extending beyond like ID protection tools and things like that is starting to grow. So we are also going to be doing similar things with some of our personal lines friends. Um, what's really neat about that is we have a whole set of tools that have been trained on millions and millions of events on a business scale, really deployed really widely. And a lot of those tools in email and in browsing and things like that, all of that intelligence adds up. And there is really no reason why it can't be deployed for your extended family, maybe, right? Like, yeah, I've got an email client that's got a natural language processing algorithm that looks for instances of fraudulent wire transfer requests for business. And it's gotten really, really good at sniffing out when somebody's trying to trick you into sending money to the wrong place. Is there a way that I can redeploy that so that someone's elderly mother doesn't get tricked into sending money for a timeshare she never bought? You bet there is. The exact same tool. So we're going to start doing that, and I think that's going to be really valuable and an entirely new avenue for us. So I'm excited about that too.
Fantastic. Very interesting stuff. Um,
Cool, thank you.
awesome. Thank you very much for your time. When this goes live, I'll tag both you and the company on LinkedIn. Uh, and it's interesting to see the tools that we have around cyber maturing.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, absolutely.
so
I'm curious about your perspective on, I mean, you work in recruiting, right? I mean, is that
mhm.
the main day job?
Yes. So the podcast I've been doing forever,
Yeah,
and the day job nowadays, I run a little recruiting firm specializing in insurance and insurtech.
cool. Do you see, do you work on cyber related placements at all? You see that ticking up or down or changing tastes in sort of like emerging risks, underwriters or brokers, things like that?
What I can tell you is I get a lot of career calls. So basically, like the kids are very interested in cyber.
Yeah,
We're not getting hired to find cyber people.
yeah,
Uh, I don't probably because I've never like gone out looking for that business.
yeah,
But I do get a lot of career conversations where the reason they're interested in insurance is because they want to work in cyber.
yeah. It is really interesting. We get a lot of that, a lot of inbound on that too. Um, which is neat, right? Like it's one of those lines of insurance that for whatever reason at a cocktail party, people are like, "Oh, okay, that's interesting." It's like,
Perceived as much more interesting
yeah, it's not
than
as different as people think it is. I mean, it's just, you know, if you get into it and you think cyber insurance is interesting, I always tell people like, you probably would think other things in insurance are interesting if you think cyber. It's not actually as different as people think it is, you know? And so, um, I don't know, maybe that's exciting. Maybe kids getting into it and then they'll start to disperse and
Mhm.
they'll
Yeah, no,
learn other
it's a good thing
lines.
for the industry for sure.
Yeah, totally, totally. That's great. Well, good. Well, let me know if there's anything else I can get to you or anything, but a pleasure to meet you, and I really appreciate you having me on.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a great one.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.